Welcome everyone. This is another video of answer writing program. This month onwards, in November from 1st onwards, we are going to start with ethics. Every week you will be practicing answer for 5 days, Monday to Friday. The entire coverage of the syllabus of GS4 will be done. There will be 12 case studies specifically discussed to ensure you have holistic preparation of GS4. You can attempt those questions at vajiramis.com, mains daily questions, and you can also see the model answers and video discussions over here in the YouTube. Just go to Vajiram IAS, mains daily answer. You can see the schedule over here. You can go to the respective month. Right now, the November month is going to start with GS4. You can see the questions. Just click on any question and choose your file and upload your answer. Be disciplined in your practice so that you can improve your answer writing in a holistic way. So let's start with first November video for GS4. The topic that we are going to discuss is from the philosophy aspect of the ethics part, where firstly we are going to talk about ethics and human interface and also talk about contribution of moral thinkers, philosophers from India and world. Let us see the overview of the questions. The very first question is a basic question which talks about morals and values. Over here, you can decipher and distinguish exactly between morals and values and also understand its application for good governance. The next is about quotation. Over here, there's a quotation given about from Mahatma Gandhi. We will try to understand and see what can we write in our answers. And third is about a current affair question. Over here, we will be talking about the recent Gaza resolution that was presented in United Nations General Assembly. And we will talk about certain ethical consideration with respect to India's decision. So let us start with the very first question. What are morals and values and how are they different? Also highlight how they can be instrumental in good governance in India. So the question is very simple and straightforward. It is asking you to define morals, values and understand the difference between the same. At the same time, there is also demand with respect to their application for good governance in India. In the introduction, you can interlink both and write how exactly morals and values, they are interlinked together and have certain kind of similarity. However, there are certain differences as well, which you will tackle in the body. You can also draw a diagram to help understand what exactly are values and how morals are subset of the same. In the body, the very first heading you will be writing is going to be about the definition, give example and talk about the difference. For morals, you can talk about how they are set of values, principles of an individual with respect to understanding what is right and wrong in the society. Whereas values are general guiding ideas where we do not decipher with respect to whether they are good or bad. It's just values. You can give example for both. For morals, you can talk about honesty, how honesty is something which helps you specifically with respect to understanding right and wrong in the society. You can give an example. You can give example of Mahatma Gandhi, how honesty was the core principle that he followed. For value, you can talk about certain general principles, as in proactiveness is a value where an individual might want to pursue this value of proactiveness wherever they are working or in their personal life. So it is a general idea. You can talk about how Sachin Tendulkar is proactive with respect to learning whatever cricket skills that he was required to learn. So that is something for value. In the difference, you can again, if you have not used the diagram that we used in the introduction, you can use it over here and you can talk about how values are a superset and morals are part of value system, very specifically for individuals, which talks about the right and wrong for the society. So that is something you will talk about and write about in heading 1 of the body. In heading 2, you will answer the second demand of the question, which is its application for good governance. Now, you must be understanding the aspects of good governance. Basically, when governance meets with ethics and morals, we have good governance. So that is something you can write. You can also draw certain kind of diagrams like this, right? So this is governance and this is morals and values and this is good governance. So in the heading 2, you can write several points such as first, ethical decision making. Now, when we talk about ethical decision making, when a person is having his morals aligned with the ethics, as in what is good for the public, they will definitely decide such that whatever the entire process is ethical as well as in favor for the governance. So that is something you can write. You can give example of TN session, how he implemented certain reforms in the election machinery. So that is something you can do for the first point. For transparency and accountability, individuals definitely need certain kind of moral conscience so that they are always transparent in their process and making sure they take the responsibility, they are taking the accountability of the work they are doing. So you can talk about our Prime Minister, ex-Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri, that how when he was railway minister, he resigned where there are certain instances of accountability. Third is social cohesion. Now, for good governance, you have to realize that at the end, the core is public. Everything has to be citizen-centric. So, citizen should have certain kind of relationship with the governance aspect. And over here, Gandhi's talisman, which talks about helping the most deserving person, is also kind of ethical thing. So, governance will ensure the inclusivity factor is also in place. So you can talk about this example and expand the social cohesion like that. So that is how we understand how morals and values have application in good governance. In the conclusion part, you can talk about way ahead. Way ahead as in how morals and values can be the central part of public life as well as for an individual to go ahead and make sure they realize that the good governance is translated into good governance. You can also talk about different pillars of good governance, how they all can be also achieved through morals and values. So that is there for question number 1. Let us see the model answer and understand how can we inculcate the same in our answer writing practice. In the introduction, you talk about certain interlinkages, and through that you can transition to the body. In the first part of the body, first heading, you talk about the morals, you define it and you give example. That way you are very explicit with it. Similarly, do that for the values, and then you talk about the differences. You talk about how there are certain differences with respect to understanding of morality and values, and then you talk about how they play a crucial role with respect to governance, good governance in India. You list down all the points and give certain substantiation so that you can write your answer in a holistic way. And at the end, you talk about way ahead, how both of them, morals and values, are necessary for realizing good governance in India. So that's it for question number 1. Let's see question number 2. Question number 2. What does the following quotation mean to you? What you can do in response to the ocean of suffering may seem insignificant, but it is very important that you do it. This quote was given by Mahatma Gandhi. This is part of a topic where we are talking about moral contribution of thinkers, etc. In the introduction, you can briefly explain the meaning of the quote. As in, let's try to decipher what exactly is the quote. What you can do in response to the ocean of suffering may seem insignificant, but it is very important that you do. It talks about how an individual must proactively act for the social good, despite whatever the intensity of the effort is. We do understand the ocean of suffering, that there are so many wicked problems out there. To figure out the solution for the same might be difficult, and for an individual to solve the entire social problem might be impossible. But despite that, you can start with small steps, and together that we can integrate the entire small steps and small responses of individuals and thus solve such kind of problems. So it is very important that you still contribute despite whatever the intensity of your contribution is. So that is something in brief you will explain in the introduction. In the body, you will give certain kind of substantiation for the same, as in action in response to the ocean of suffering. You must be a proactive citizen, as in you can donate to charities such as Akshay Patra, which is ensuring that the right kind of quality of food goes to the midday meal program, where the student who come from underprivileged background, they can definitely have access to food. Second is social volunteering, where you can proactively give back to the society. Like we have NGOs such as Teach for India. Teach for India, over there you can directly contribute to the schooling system of India over here. So this is the essence. Despite that, you might be tackling few kids, but you're still contributing for the better. Then you can talk about how environmental cleaning efforts, like how it's very necessary, that small step like not using plastic or taking proactive steps with respect to environmental cleaning programs, volunteering over there is also necessary. We have seen that certain NGOs, right, like WWF, are ensuring they are spreading awareness as well as inculcating and making sure people participate with respect to awareness of environment. Then spreading awareness using social media, using your network to create any kind of awareness is also your contribution towards the ocean of suffering. Then supporting ethical companies and institutions. So we as a consumer can support institutions which are making sure sticking to the ethical values so that we support the right organization. This has overall impact on the entire society. And lastly, practicing kindness and compassion. Just saying good morning, good like wishes to any person or feeling a sense of gratitude can also create a lot of ripples of response towards the ocean of suffering. So that is something that you can also inculcate in your answer. Having a little bit of personalized response will make your answers very unique. So that is something you can write in the heading 1 of the body. In heading 2, you can talk about how those actions might be insignificant but are very important. As in, they will definitely elevate suffering for few individuals, and thus integrating all the efforts, we can solve the problem. As we talked about the education with respect to Teach for India, most of the students who are not able to access education at cheaper cost, the quality education, through such kind of volunteering, you can give back to the society and thus elevate suffering. Second is building empathy and understanding. Well, through the process and through socialization, it might happen that we miss out the instances of being compassionate. But when you definitely give a response to this kind of issues, you will definitely develop the idea of compassion and also personally develop. And third is creative positive change. Well, positivity is something which is scarce right now, and doing even small contribution for the society will create certain landscape for positive change. So that is there for heading 2. We will write in the body. Let us go to the conclusion. Conclusion, you can connect this for learning for contemporary society. We can talk about that present society is facing a lot of issues, and most of the issues are diverse and multidimensional. Therefore, people must come forward and ensure that they are also contributing back to the society. So that is there for something you can write in the conclusion. Let's see the model answer and understand how can we inculcate the same in our answer writing practice. Firstly, in the introduction, you can give brief about the code. You can also cite certain examples to give a very good idea that you are clear with the understanding of the quotation. Then in the body, in the heading 1, you can list down different proof points, give examples. Similarly, in the heading 2, you can give the substantiation for the code, and the last, you can talk about the way forward. So that is there for question number 2. Now let's see question number 3, which is current affair based. To what extent does India's recent absenteeism to vote against Israel in United Nations General Assembly reflect a balanced approach to international affairs? What ethical consideration underlie this decision? So now this question is a mix of India's response with respect to the recent resolution, the Gaza resolution, and also the ethical consideration that underlie the decision. So in the introduction, you have the opportunity to briefly talk about the resolution, that how because of the recent war that is happening between Israel and Hamas, the Gaza resolution was presented to ensure there is peace, and the people who have faced a lot of heat because of the war can get certain kind of rehabilitation. So that was there for in the resolution. However, India did not voted. It was absent with respect to the voting part because there was certain kind of ethical consideration that India has, and that is a balanced approach that we'll see in the heading 1, and ethical consideration we'll see in the heading 2. So that is there you can talk about in the introduction. In the body, heading 1, you can talk about the India's stance as a balanced approach to international affair. The first thing, you can explicitly talk about how it's a balanced approach. India has supported Palestine as well as Israel. So we can understand that India is not exactly favoring any specific nation, but is following a very balanced approach. You can talk about India's guiding principle with respect to not intervening with any other neighboring countries or any countries at global level. You can talk about multilateral engagement. India believes in ensuring that there should be multilateral engagement. There should not be any kind of bilateral force, etc. So multilateral engagement through United Nations or through other bodies. And lastly, non-alignment, as we have seen that India is not favoring any specific country. That reflects India's principle of non-alignment. Then in the heading 2, you will talk about the ethical considerations behind the decision. Firstly, respect for sovereignty and non-interference. India respects the sovereignty of both Israel and Palestine and ensures there is no interference in their political decisions. Second is the belief in peace and non-violent negotiations. Over here, India can talk about how India has historically practiced the promotion of peace and negotiation such that no other country feels that their sovereignty has been sabotaged. And third, humanitarian concerns. India also believes that in the resolution there were certain missing factors that talked about that missed part with respect to the atrocities that have been done in specific nation, and thus India believed that for humanitarian crisis the decision was correct. And lastly, public opinion. India is a democratic nation and thus believes that whatever the citizens of the nation believe should be reflected in their diplomacy, and the same was reflected in their decision making. So that is there in the heading 2 of the body. Now let us see the conclusion. In conclusion, you can talk about going ahead. Going ahead, you can either talk about ethical consideration, that how other nations should also consider different aspects. You can also talk about India's policy, how India still is going to pursue the policy of de-hyphenation. Apart from that, India also believes that certain accords happened in the past like Abraham Accord. Such kind of accords should be the foundation for relationship, and thus further whatever the pursuit of peace is, it should be ensured through such kind of mutual understanding. So that is there you can write in the conclusion of question number 3. Let us see the model answer and understand how can we inculcate the same in our answer writing practice. Firstly, in the introduction, you talk about the current context, about the Gaza resolution, about the issue, and you can also talk about the voting that happened and how India was absent. Then you talk about India's stance, because we have to also cater to the balanced approach to international affair. You will list down different points and you will give proof points for those keywords. Then in the ethical consideration, you can talk about the considerations and also give certain proof points to ensure your argument is holistic in nature. And lastly, going ahead in the conclusion, you can talk about the way forward such as Abraham Accord, etc. So that is there for question number 3. This is answer writing program, and this month we are going to cover GS4. So keep writing. Thank you so much.